Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the November circulation SIG for koha-US. I'm John Frederick. I work with Colorado Library Consortium. And yeah, let's dive in. Let's do a little, if you haven't been here before, or just do a quick little intro so we can kind of get some names down. Who do we got today?
I can go. I'm Avery Clements. I'm from Clams in Massachusetts, and I do technical support with them.
Welcome.
I may as well go next as I'm also Clams. I wasn't sure if any of us were going to be here today, so I popped in. So we've been on Koha since almost a year at the end of February 2024.
Nice.
I'll go. I'm Chanel from the Yavapai Library Network in Arizona. I'm a systems librarian here, and we're a consortium of 59 multi-type libraries.
Very nice. Oh, sweet.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I work with the Chesapeake Public Library. We just got Koha in September, so we're brand new to the system, and I'm a frontline staff liaison here for Chesapeake.
Very nice. Welcome.
I'm George. I'm the Next Search Catalog Coordinator at Northeast Kansas Library System, and I've been using Koha since 2012, and Neckles has been using Koha since 2008.
Oh, yeah. Well, sweet. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for tuning in for some circulation. I was looking over the video from last month, and I was going to dive back into one of those topics real quick. There was the topic of permissions for accounts, like for cataloging and stuff, to prevent people from messing with the catalog or deleting items. I'm not sure if it was known. Let me just share this real quick from that last discussion, but there was a specific section about like serials where you could specifically control serial input as well as cataloging. So yeah, I was just going to point that out real quick. Where did it go? Here we go. So yeah, you got your cataloging stuff where you can control, if they add just an item or the whole bib record, if you want to pull in a new one. But then you also have the down a little further, manage the serial subscription. So I don't know, that might help with something that was discussed last time. But yeah, let me throw it back to you guys. You guys got any fun circ stuff going down or any issues?
I'm thinking related to that last issue, I'm thinking in the next version, there will be a way in 2305, there is a way to prevent people from editing and deleting records that aren't owned by the library you're at. I think Bywater's already done a Monday Minute on that, but I think it's a system preference, and I think that when you turn it on, it means that somebody from library A can't edit or delete the items owned by library B.
Exactly. Yeah, we're actually having that issue a little while ago, and I think it's already a setting in here where they can't edit or.
Is that already in 2205?
I believe so. Let me see if it pops up, but yeah, you don't want other like libraries changing your,
I'd prefer not.
Info.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That could get messy quick.
But it happens.
Very true. Yeah, exactly. You never know. Let's see.
I think Michelle in our system has done some work on this, but she's not here. But she's checking with Bywater to see if it's actually working. It's something about, do you remember, Avery? It's something about groups, setting groups. Because we have some libraries where they have branches where we want them to be able to edit. For example, Falmouth has 2 branches. So we want the tech services person or the circ person in Falmouth, Maine, to be able to edit the items at their 2 branches. So I think she has set up groups. And then even for the libraries with no branches, she has set up each of those libraries as a group. And there's some difference between the language in the system setting. It's any edits versus edits, but I don't know the details, but if anyone wants to reach out to her, she can. We're not sure if it's working. We just had a meeting with Bywater this morning to make sure it's working in the version we're on now, which is, Avery, help me out here. Is it 2210, I think?
That sounds right.
Yeah. So
And
that's
it
all we know about it, but it's. I'm not
seems
sure
like using the groups, there's potential, yeah, definitely for like more granularity in some of those settings. Definitely like we work with the state prisons, and there's a lot of breakdown there because you know, prisoners work in the library system as clerks, so we really want to lock down what they're able to access and look at. And some of the new staff aren't allowed to catalog and things, so it's really refining those like settings and seeing what actually happens when you know, it's on or not.
And we're working with, oh God, what's his name? Is it Nick? I think. We're working at getting a quote for more granular permissions in cataloging. Because we have 3 levels. I know that's not CERC, but I'm putting a plug in for our development when it comes up, because we'll probably be looking for co-funding on that. It's to allow, you know, the central site to have super cataloging permissions, and then the tech services supervisors who also do acquisitions to have like mid-level, and then other, but not change bibs, and then other libraries to have more basic levels. So we're working with Bywater, our management system, support system, to get a quote on really granular cataloging permissions that we had on our previous system. So stay tuned.
Yeah, that has good potential. Definitely let us know when you have it up and you know, the quote going. What did Bywater say? Was it pretty they seemed like it was pretty doable?
Yeah, they've
Very
come up
cool.
with a potential, you know, development for that when they had
Oh,
their
cool.
retreat. So they met with us and one other consortium that I know of, and we think it may work. It wasn't exactly what we were thinking of, but we think it'll work.
Well, close. Very nice.
So it depends on the cost.
Always, yeah, of course. Got to see what that looks like. Oh, cool. Very nice. Would anyone have any other developments or bugs they're messing around with?
I pointed out a really unusual bug the other day at the general meeting that I don't know if everybody is aware of. And I'm looking for the bug report right now.
Oh, cool.
So if you have it's related to the messaging preferences. And I can't find it. Oh, no, here it is. It's bug number 26520. So I'll put the link in the chat box there.
Cool. Thank you.
And so I can actually demonstrate it if you like.
Yeah,
And
go
it's
for it.
really weird, and it only happens when you create a new patron. There we go. So if you go to create a new patron, adult, card number. So when you get down here to the messaging preferences, when you're creating a patron, these are what we have set as the default. And if you disable all of them and then click save, it will reset all of them back to on.
Oh, weird.
It only happens when you clear all of them, 100% of them. If you just clear one, works fine. But if you clear all of the defaults, then it resets them all back to the default level. Once you've created the patron, you can edit them, you can clear them all after the patron's created, but it won't save a new patron with all of those defaults turned off. If you just uncheck one, saves no problem. If you uncheck all but one, it saves no problem. If you uncheck all of them, it resets back to the default when you click on save.
That's super weird. Is it like a recent
I don't know
change?
what the problem is. And actually, no, it's been there for 2 years. It's just that it's such a weird set of conditions that it took one of my libraries found it accidentally when they had a patron that wanted to receive, they want patrons to receive overdue notices by email, but the patron didn't want any other emails, and she had trouble saving it. And then she explained it to me, and I couldn't. And she explained it to me in a phone call, and I couldn't understand what she meant. And then she was actually here at the office, and she actually walked me through it step by step, slowly, and then we figured out what it was. So, and it's been a bug for a couple of years. It's just nobody's acted on it.
Oh wow, yeah. Yeah, I've had
Well,
the
and
like
the reason nobody's acted on it is because Lucas from Bywater described it, and then Kate couldn't repeat it because Kate wasn't clearing all of the checkboxes. She was just removing some of them because, and so she wasn't able to recreate it. So there's been no action on it. It's been a bug since 2020. It's
It's
just
been
celebrated
a
its
while.
third anniversary.
Still going. Yeah, was having like the same issue with when I made a patron account and duplicated it to make them like a staff account and a patron account.
Yeah.
The duplicated account would not save like dates. It would not save expiration date for like password and stuff unless you went back in, like you had to save it and then go back in and edit it again. That
Is there a
also
bug
did.
for that then in Bugzilla?
That's a good question. I bet there is, but I would need to find it. It also wouldn't save like the location either. But it would only do it if it was a duplicate patron.
Yeah, when I just do a search for duplicate patron in Bugzilla, I get a whole long list of 117 things. So
Yes. Probably buried in there somewhere. I'll definitely dig it up. I'll send out a little thing that covered kind of what we talked about today later this week.
yeah, one of the great things about Bugzilla and being a Bywater customer is if you just submit a ticket to Bugzilla that says this is the bug that this appears to be a bug, somebody from Bywater will do the legwork of trying to find it on Bugzilla.
See, now that's a good hint right there.
That's a good shortcut right there. Instead of digging around in Bugzilla, if you can just tell Bywater that there's a problem. Yeah.
It's the
I guess there's a bug for that too. I see another duplicate patron bug. It says patron messaging preference clearing if duplicate.
yes, it's something weird going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, how's everyone else's koha looking over there?
Every time we think we're doing something with holes. What is that, Avery?
We're doing the real-time holds queue. We're
Is that
trying it
like,
out.
is that the one where it prioritizes different locations? Was that the one?
Yeah.
It's the one that's, yeah, it's always running. So we went to do it 3 times a day. Ocean State was doing that, and we thought that would work for us, and we were still running into like, yeah, the location priority wasn't working right. So I think we're doing it on the 14th.
Testing it out.
So we don't have a test server, so we're going live with it, and you know, we
See
discussed.
what happens.
We had a membership meeting yesterday, and we were telling people, well, Michelle, our colleague, was telling people, you know, what we expected to do. So the caveat on that is let's hope it works. But I think, was it Nick or Lucas that was working on that? I can never remember. But it was in place before, but they've given us, because of the size of the network or the consortium, they've given us extra workers that will, we were reluctant to go on it initially, but they did some tweaking that hopefully it should work. The
Very
only
nice,
thing
yeah.
it won't work with, and Michelle has done a whole load of work on the, oh God, what's that called again, Avery?
The transport cost matrix.
Yeah, for some reason I call it the matrix and nobody knows what I'm talking about. But anyway, the libraries with branches, they're still going to have an issue. You know, they want their main branch to be priority, and then the next priority, the other 2 branches. But for some reason, I'm not even sure that will fix that issue. So
Yeah,
we
definitely keep us posted on that, like
Yeah.
how it's
Is anyone
looking.
else using the real-time holds in a consortium especially? No?
Or like the what is it, like the transport cost matrix?
Oh,
Anyone
well, I know
anyone
people are
messing with
using that. I mean, it helps. We have 6 libraries on an island, and you know, rather than, and the stuff goes over to them
A little slower.
via ferry. So
Yeah.
we'd rather not be, you know, even though we don't pay for it as the state, but you know, we probably pay for it indirectly, but we don't want the material to be going over by ferry if it can be avoided. We'd rather, you know, they share it amongst themselves. So I think the cost matrix is working more or less for that, but this will help even further the real-time holds now that they've done some tweaking on it. That's the hope, but I'm not sure it's going to help with libraries that have branches.
That's something that Koha has always had a problem with, and the Valnet Consortium was interested in development 10 years ago when I worked there, but they could never get it together to get that funded. And in Nichols, I said that when I got here, I said that I would, you know, Nichols has promised to help fund that up to 20%, but nobody else has ever taken the ball with that for that and run with it. The idea being that to have local holds priority for things not just by library branch, but by groups. And that's, I think, what would help your situation, is if there was local holds priority for everybody in this group, you know, first at the library, then at the group, and then at the system level.
Yeah, I think, isn't there, did Bob file a bug for that, or was talking about development? Because we were talking to him about that. I think
There's been a bug for that out there since at least 2012.
we're
So,
interested in that if this thing doesn't resolve the complete picture, which I don't think it will.
yeah, and Nichols is willing to help pay for that. We don't have that situation. We only have 2 libraries that have groups that have multiple branches. I only have 2 libraries that have that situation
Same
here.
here. It's the same.
Well, Valnet has almost all of their libraries are like that.
How do you spell that? Valnet?
VALNET.
Okay.
They occasionally, well, they used to have somebody that came to these meetings all the time, and then she got a job with Bywater. So Valnet doesn't represent the way they used to at the koha-US meetings anymore. The issue with that Valnet always has is that they don't have any central authority, and they're run by committees, and the committees, you know how it is running things by committees. So they have, and they just have trouble getting enough people together to say, yes, we want to fund this.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just talking yesterday about possibly putting the travel cost matrix and the real-time holds into place. Some of our like small rural libraries get, you know, way more holds being pulled than they should need to do. And we're thinking about that cost matrix, but we have like 150 plus libraries, it gets real messy setting that up. So we're still messing around with it before we make it live. Like
Yeah.
some of those
Yeah, another
bigger.
consortium we talked to had a very complex setup, but Clams was able to set up a pretty, I won't say simple, but more straightforward kind of a thing. We had the opposite problem where the small libraries with limited hours ran their holds list, you know, went to the shelves, possibly not immediately. I don't know, maybe they had a cup of coffee in between. And by the time they pulled stuff for their patrons for pickup at their library, somebody else had filled the hold, even though the item wasn't active, like in circulation. So we're hoping, we have a lot of hope pinned on this November 14th real-time holds. We're hoping that will help with that.
We usually
Yeah,
have
coming
the
up quick.
exact opposite problem where somebody goes in the morning at the small library, they print the list, and our holds list the pick list regenerates 8 minutes before the hour, and so they'll print it like at 7:50, and then they will set it down, have their cup of coffee, do whatever it is they do, and then by the time they go look for things, they've already been filled by other libraries. So they pull all these
That's
things.
what I meant. Yeah, that's
Yeah, and then they end up just going back on the shelf, and other libraries are filling them for other libraries. So
yeah,
it's not things that they're
yeah, that's what's happening with our small libraries. It's not that they have to fill too many holes, it's that their holes are being filled by the bigger libraries because of their hours and stuff like that. I don't know. So they're losing out on circulation to and the patrons come in and they may find it on the shelf and say, I've got a hold on this.
Yeah.
And then the staff have to explain to the patron it's on its way from another library, and the patron will say, well, why? I'm your patron.
Right here.
It's right here. So that's what I meant. I probably didn't explain it very well, but so we're hoping that this will help on the 14th.
Coming up quick.
I don't know if this really goes with that because we're really, like I said, we're really new to Koha. We just migrated in September, but our old system had a real-time holds thing that we had to actually work around because our smaller libraries we're just a branch. We just have 7 branches, but our smaller branches were filling the holds before our largest branch could fill them. And so even though we were all doing our pick list at the same time, all of the pick list for the larger branch ended up being filled by the smaller branches because it took us so much longer to do it because there were so many on there. And we ended up having to schedule it where the smaller libraries did their holds in the afternoon rather than in the morning, with the larger library did it in the morning. So I don't know if that would help in some instances, but that's kind of how we had to do it when we had our real-time holds queue and couldn't get around it any other way.
Well, I have to put a plug in for this because I'm kind of obsessed with it. On our old system, we had, and I'm sure you've heard this from me before, if you've seen me at other meetings, we had a great thing called a 72-hour pause. And it's not in Koha, and I want it. It was where, I'm not very good at explaining these things. It was where we have a library on Nantucket, so we would want that hold to stay at Nantucket, again, to avoid the ferry or airplane transport costs. We would want the hold to stay on the pull list at Nantucket if they had it for 72 hours before it moved on to another library. Granted, if the item was checked in somewhere else, that's fair game. It, because it's active, it would go to the library. That's fine. But if it was sitting on the shelf at Nantucket, this 72-hour pause that was available in Innovative Sierra worked really well for us. But anytime I ever mention it, I just get blank stares in the koha community because nobody seems to be interested. And maybe it was something that we used in Sierra that other people who have moved from Sierra to koha never used and didn't care about. But as a Sierra consortium, it was fantastic for us with geographic locations on islands. But we would love at some point to co-fund that if anyone is interested, especially if you come from a system that had that feature.
But was that turned on at the branch level or like for everybody? Like they just got, when the book got returned, they kept it for 72 hours before?
No. If the book was returned, it filled the hold. Even if it was sitting on the Nantucket shelf, it was turned on for everyone.
Okay.
So for the smaller libraries who had it on their shelf, who were maybe only open X number of days, and for the island libraries, and for everyone really, the 72-hour pause, you could turn it on. I think you could, I think it was up to 72 hours. Maybe that was the maximum, but we chose 72 hours, but it also tied in with the branches open table. So I think it was 72 hours based on their opening hours. So it was more complex than just a pause, but the items that were active in motion in the system were excluded from the pause, but that pause was really important to us. And
I can see how I can see the reason that Koha doesn't do that is because when Koha, when you add something into the holds queue to be pulled from the shelf, Koha doesn't know when it, currently the way the tables are set up, there's nothing in there that tells Koha when that item was added to that queue. And so there's no way that it can tell how long it's been in there or how many times it's been shuffled from one library to another.
Yeah.
And so that would be the first step in adding that kind of feature, would be making the holds queue remember how long something has been in that holds queue.
Koha is very good at, saying, okay, consortiums should run this way and not that. I can understand why Koha has it set up so that, you might have an item listed on a specific library's queue, but if another library triggers that same item somewhere else, it wants to fill that as soon as possible. I can see that as a really good working model, but it would be nice if there was some flexibility that we could say, okay, let's pick, the queue that's most ideal and sit there. And if it's not responded within a prescribed amount of time, then open it up to whoever triggers that item after that. It would be nice if
that's how it worked in our old system. And we're okay with that. If the hold is triggered somewhere else because the item is in motion, is being checked in or whatever, we're fine with that. That was the same on our old system. The pause only applied to stuff that wasn't in motion in the system, if you know what I mean. If it was sitting on the shelf, there was a pause related to the holds list, related to the days open table, branches open. to give the library a chance to fill the hole, but open season on it if it was active. If it was checked in somewhere else, that's fine. That's in the patron's favor, in fact, more or less. But thank you, George, for explaining that. Because my attitude is, well, can't you just do it? So it's
Yeah,
good to know
that's,
the background.
yeah, that would be something that would have to be added, because right now, when you place a request on something, that request gets put in a table in the database called reserves. And then there is another table called temporary holds queue and another one called hold fill targets. And the way that Koha works now is there's a cron job that runs that says populate temporary holds queue every hour based on these settings. And there's nothing in temporary holds queue that says when an item first gets pushed into that temporary holds queue, and there's nothing there that says how long it's been there. And so that would be the first step, is getting Koha to whoops, sorry. Getting Koha to know those things would be the first step in creating a feature like that. And you know, one of the things that might help you
Sorry.
in that situation is I'm imagining that you guys are just using the built-in holds queue in Koha to decide what to pull off the shelf, right?
I'm not sure. Are we? Well, we're using that matrix.
Well, I mean, when somebody goes in the morning to generate a list of what to pull off the shelf, what report are they using to do that?
Yeah, it's the
They're
it's the
just going
built-in
to
one.
circulation
Mhm.
and pulling the holds queue. There is a report that I'm sure is on the wiki. I'm 90% sure it's there because I wrote it, and I'm pretty sure that we did a video about it, which would almost certainly mean that it's on there, but it's called Priority Holds Queue. And it, when you run it, it tells, let me just show you what it does. So if I were to go to a library that's going to actually have something in its holds queue, like Leavenworth. So they currently only have 4 items in their holds queue. They're on the ball today. Let's try a different library. Let's try Baser. Yeah, they got 20 items. So this report classifies things as high priority or highest priority. They've got all their highest priority stuff off of there. But the way that I've got this report set up is anything that says highest priority is a request for a pickup at this library, or the request is an item level request. And high priority are things where that's the only copy. So this one here that says high priority is a book that's only owned by Baser. It's got a request on it, and Baser is the only library that can fill it.
Oh, wow. This
And
looks great.
then if you go down further, these ones don't have any priority listed. So they're things that multiple libraries could fill those holds. But I think that might help solve some of your problems too with those libraries where you say they're printing their list in the morning and then not pulling things right away. And so the things that are on their list, they are not necessarily getting shipped from other libraries. If they were to run this, they would know based on the report, on the holds queue report, what's, you know, the things that they need to pull for their borrowers right there. So
That looks interesting. Thank you.
And
Where'd
I'm
you say
not-
we could find that report?
I'm 99% sure it's on the Koha wiki. It's just that I'm not sure where it is. So I'm looking for it.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, that looked really promising.
And the reason that we did that is because we have the libraries that they try in the morning only to fill the things that are, they want to prioritize the things that they can pull that don't need to leave their library, not because they don't want things to leave their library, but because the courier often doesn't physically have space on the vehicle for all the things that need to be shipped. Because that's an issue.
Space-saving technique.
That's
too.
an issue that we have, is that our biggest libraries in Next are all in the Kansas City area, in Wyandotte County and Leavenworth County. And they're all like in a row, and they all use the same courier. And that courier goes from Atchison to Leavenworth to Lansing to Bonner Springs to Basel and to Tonganoxie. And by the time they get to Tonganoxie, they frequently don't have enough room on the vehicle for all the stuff that they're being asked to ship. But let me see if I can find that report.
Well, yeah, so anything to cut down on that load, definitely.
Yeah.
So, I am actually in charge of the couriers for our system here. So just listening to that, I'm trying to remember what I was going to say. So sorry. It'll come back to me. I'll come back. Sorry.
Everyone else's courier.
I remember
What-
now.
Oh, there we
I
go. What do you
remember.
got?
Okay, so we do centralized holds. So everything in our system comes to our main branch and then is shipped back out. So it's all sorted here and then shipped back out. Are there any other systems that do that on Koha that you know of?
Well, we have centralized sorting, but it's not at any library. It's at we have statewide delivery. And so it has to go off Cape Cod to be sorted. The only place that we have intra-library delivery is on Martha's Vineyard and sort of unofficially at the libraries that have branches. So it is centralized, but the libraries are not running it. So it's a bit different. But everything goes off Cape anyway to be sorted. So even if Centreville Library has something, it can't go directly to the Osterville Library, which is down the road, because it goes off Cape anyway, except for Martha's Vineyard. They have an intra-island library, and then unofficially at Yarmouth and Falmouth, where they have branches, they have staff that go from one branch to the other. So I'm sorry, that probably doesn't help you at all, but we do have centralized sorting, but not run by a library.
Chris, I was just going to say I couldn't find the holds report, but Christopher found it, and it's on my personal website.
Oh, perfect.
So, and he put a link in there for it. So, from what I think it was Jennifer was saying about having all the items come to a central location and then be distributed back out, we sort of have that. It's just that we have 3 of those. The state of Kansas contracts with a courier service run by Henry Industries. And so if something is being shipped, and so there's these distribution centers all across the state. There's the ones that affect Nichols are Kansas City, Kansas is the biggest one, or actually their warehouse is in Kansas City, Missouri. So anything in that part of the system goes from the library to the Henry Industries workshop in Kansas City, Missouri, and then the next day it goes back out. So they all go there, they all get redistributed. And then some of them, if they need to go to a library that isn't on the Kansas City hub, then they might go to Emporia if they're in the southern end of the Nichols area, or they might go to Topeka if they're more western. But then there's also hubs in, I think there's one in Newton, and there's one in Dodge City, and there might be one in, I think it's Salina, or maybe Great Bend, and there's one in Wichita. So it's one of the unfortunate things, you know, where I was in Idaho, if something was moving, if the courier had something that, you know, would go from library A to library B, and library B, and he would pick it up at library A, and the next stop on the route was library B, it would usually get delivered the same day. But the couriers here don't work like that, because they're not only the library couriers, they're also moving other materials, because the library isn't Henry Industries' only client. And so a lot of times things from library A to library B will go from library A, they'll go past library B and then back to Kansas City, and then they'll be delivered the next day. And that's one of the things, if we could change that in the Kansas City area, that would solve a lot of our courier physical space problems. But I'm not the courier coordinator, and so I don't have any control over that. So
Yeah, that setup sounds very similar to ours. Couple sorting areas we contract out. And yeah, they're moving a lot of other stuff around. So
I think there are like 9 or 10 hubs in Kansas. I'm not sure, because like I said, that's not an area I have to deal with.
and yeah, if we're having like an issue with like our books getting there or skipping a stop or something, we have our courier head guy go out there and check in on everything, make sure they know, you know, hit every stop. And Jennifer, you said yours was at a library, right? Where they did all the sorting.
Yeah, it's our central library.
So probably the most folds would come from there too.
Yeah.
Nice.
Sounds like it takes up a lot of space, is my guess.
It takes up, well, we just got a new sorting machine, so it does take up a little bit more space than our old sorting machine. But it doesn't take up a whole lot of space, because the new sorter is the bins are transportable, so we don't have to like transfer them from the bin to a bin that's going to be transported like we used to. So it's taking up a little less space, but also taking up the same amount of space. It's weird, but we do have to reevaluate how we do our courier run, because those bins take up more space in the van than the older bins did. So we can only do so many at a time, and it's a space issue.
I only have one library that has RFID, so materials handling machines are not an issue for us. It's somebody physically going, all right, there's an H on that one, it goes here.
Oh, that reminds me, we have something else exciting happening. But finish with this topic first, please.
I'm good. It just popped up, so I'm good.
The RFID reminded me of something. We have one library using that too, but maybe everybody else is already doing this. Maybe it's not as exciting as I think it is. We're launching a Clams branded LIDA app in mid to late December. We were on something called Capira, which is now owned by OCLC. And that was set up to work in Sierra. So we had some issues that were languishing with OCLC from, we'll say, the 1st of March through September. And then they started responding. And it was too little too late. So we tested the LIDA community app. and decided that our future lay there. And then Avery and the systems manager educated me about it being preferable to have a branded app for various reasons. So we're developing, well, the systems team, Avery and Brendan, are developing a Clams branded Leda app. So is anyone else doing that?
Yes, we did it a year and a half ago.
Well, okay, we're behind.
But it's exciting because we're doing that too. We haven't started it yet because we just migrated,
Okay.
but we will be
Okay.
doing that as well.
Yeah, so we're very excited, and now they've added self-check, which we couldn't test on the community app. So it's exciting for us. People loved the app, the Kapira app, and they loved that they could do self-checkout, and people just really liked it. The self-checkout wasn't used that much, except really by staff, to be honest, but so people weren't that concerned about the self-check, but we had status issues. You know, people would drive from one library to the other because that's how the Cape is, and it would say something was available, but yes, it was available, but it was on the whole shelf for somebody else. So that's was our main issue. So are you guys going to use are you using, Chanel, self-checkout yet?
No, and I haven't got any sense that our libraries are interested in that. But here's where the key problem is. We are fully RFID tagged, and that would set off the alarms.
Yeah.
Every person would check out a book and they'd set off the alarms.
Well, we have only one library that won't be able to use the self-checkout because they're RFID. I would love to see the day when they could. But yeah, so it's exciting. We'll let you all know how it goes.
Yeah, definitely keep us posted. We're talking about doing it next year sometime, possibly.
Yeah.
Is there any concern of like people walking out without checking out the stuff, you know?
Yeah, but you know, that happens with the self-checkout too. You know, that they think they've checked something out, and then when they return it to the library contacts us, and this was never checked out. We had that
Or paid it
issue over
back.
the summer when we had terrible slowness on the system. So Avery, have you heard of that recently? I think it's settled down. I mean, there's a trust issue, but we also have open hold shelves where people help themselves. So in theory, somebody else could come along and take your hold, but it happens sometimes.
No major issue. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been fine.
Very nice.
Chanel, has the patron response to the app been pretty positive? We were a little worried about the negative reviews in the App Store.
I would say overall it's been more positive than negative. I mean, we went on it pretty early, like some of the basic stuff hadn't been vetted out yet when we went on it, because it's not very old. It's really only about 2 years old. And so there was pushback from people who hit those bugs and were unhappy. But since we've gotten past that, it's mostly stable. It's just little issues that come up now and then. But I would say that, yeah, on the whole, the patrons are pretty happy with it.
I mean, when Kapira worked on our old system, it was pretty slick, you know. And when people tested the Aspen community app, you would get that, I used to call it the blue screen of death, but the equivalent of that on an app, the thing going around, and you didn't know whether, you know, you thought it didn't work, but then when you clicked, it actually did. So I'm hoping those bugs will go away. But I didn't realize that the app itself was that new.
It was actually one of the Aspen customers that developed it on their own and got the beginnings of it going, and then Bywater took it over and continued to develop it. So it was created more like 2.5, maybe 3 years ago, but Bywater didn't take a hold of it until about 2 years ago.
So it's a baby then.
Yes.
So
Christopher Zorn.
Oh, go ahead.
Christopher Zorn was had just finished the major parts of the development at the 2019 koha-US conference, and he was showing it off and getting a lot of input on ways to change it and develop it. So it's only been around since 2019.
Oh,
I'm excited to start messing with that app.
Well, if anyone, I hate to offer people up as help, but I'm sure our systems team, you know, in addition to Bywater, if you, as you work with them, would be happy to share if you have questions.
Well, awesome. Thanks, everyone. We're getting close to that time. Any last things you want to throw out there? Awesome, guys. Thanks for everyone coming to the November circulation sig. Definitely join us next month, second Thursday of the month. So definitely stay tuned. And yeah, thanks for coming, everyone, and see you next time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right, see ya.
Bye.